let's go quickly to Skype and start to take calls. Hello there, you're on the air with Dr. Lynch. Skype. Hello, Skype.
Hello.
Yes, hi.
Hi, Art. Gentlemen,
Yes.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So I wanted to share an experience that I've been having. I had at one point heard you talk about the refresh rate on screen monitors.
Yes.
And how that can affect perception.
Right.
So I built some LCD glasses that can vary the blink rate. And I've been playing with those, and some very strange things have been happening.
Such as?
Synchronicity, but continual. Like things happening that are so beyond the possibility of coincidence. And another thing that happened is...
Well, you haven't told me yet what happened. Things that are so beyond coincidence. What do you mean?
Well, for example, I would mention something, and it would manifest itself in some totally unrelated way shortly thereafter. For example, I'd mention something to my wife, and it would happen. I would do something, and something would happen that's related, but no way they're connected, if that makes sense. But the second thing, the disturbing thing is, a couple of days ago, I went into our house. I was working in the backyard, and I couldn't find my wife. And I said, that's strange. Where did she go? And I went back in the kitchen, and she was sitting there. And I said, oh, where were you? She says, well, I've been sitting here all the time. And I thought, well, that's odd. The next morning, I woke up, and for a brief second, I saw an entity standing beside me. And a brief fraction of a second later, it was as if I reawoke. The fabric in the background changed, and that entity was gone.
All right. Well, this is
very weird.
Yes, very weird indeed. All right. Well, thank you for the call and the story. Doctor, I had a recent experience. It was, I don't know, weeks before I actually began doing this program in July that I'll describe to you briefly, and you can make of it what you will. I was working, and this is why he mentioned what he mentioned. I was working late at night on my computer, and I was doing research for this show coming up. You know, I knew I was about to be on the air in July. So, sitting at my computer for hours, late at night, after my family had long gone to bed, hours and hours in front of that computer, looking up stories and things, and all of a sudden, on my right, I saw what was a human figure shape, Doctor.
Mm-hmm.
And it startled me really badly. It scared me, and it blinked away, and I looked behind me. Why, I don't know, but there it was behind me. At this point, I'm terrified. I mean, really terrified. I swung back to the left, and oh my God, it's right there to the left of me, and then gone. And it really didn't have, appendages to it, but it was a human form. Head, torso, something where the legs should be. I don't know what this thing was. I call it a shadow person. I guess we can call it whatever you want to call it. What is a shadow person anyway?
Basically, a shadow person is something that's absorbing light energy, and that's why they look like a shadow. They're darker. They're absorbing light, and they're not reflecting light.
Is it a ghost?
Yeah, we have to walk a fine line here. Now, okay, everybody thinks I'm on the crazy side anyway. So let's say it's not a ghost. Then what would it be? And then it would be a psychic projection of an entity. So let's say there is someone incredibly telepathic or remote viewer, and accidentally they're viewing you.
Why is it not? I'm sorry. Why is it not as likely to be a ghost? Is it because of this energy deal, or?
Yeah. Okay. On the flip side, let's say it's a ghost. okay, if it was, it would be able to, at that size of energy, to memorize this entire body, should be able to move something, it should be able to reappear, and at later dates, be interactive, be more interactive. Now you have some wanderers that just, wander through the neighborhood, and they just move on.
I'm not seeking this stuff, Doctor. I don't.
No, you don't have to. No, it's curious about you. It's just curious about you. Here's Art Bell, legendary radio announcer.
Oh, come on.
Let's look over his shoulder and see what he's looking at. And curiosity on the other side is very curious. We used to go to this one place, which was incredibly haunted, and we would open the door. We'd have to start videotaping when we opened the door. And as we opened the door, the two little balls of light would be sitting right there waiting for us. And then within a few minutes, they were gone. They didn't care about us anymore. We weren't exciting enough for them or whatever. And so they'll meet you at the door. They're curious.
All right.
They're really curious.
We're in the final hour here. Let's take a call. Spartanburg, South Carolina, I believe.
Hello, Art. How are you today?
I'm okay, sir. You're on the air.
Yes, sir. Just wanted to let the gentleman know, or I had a question, rather. I saw a full-bodied entity, and I didn't know that was possible. But it spans over along Interstate 40 in Tennessee, and I'm an amateur radio operator also. And when you drive by this entity, and this has happened many times, I can actually hear the entity on the 20-meter and 80-meter bands. And I knew that they communicate electronically.
You're hearing them on the radio? Really?
Yeah, right, on the HL. And I never knew that this was possible.
I know there's some evil entities on 75 meters. No question about that.
I agree with you totally, exactly.
All right.
Yeah. I just wanted his opinion of that. I just never knew a full body could do that.
Okay, well, so, Doctor, they can project themselves, if they can project themselves to a recorder and become an EVP, then it seems to me they could project themselves to the radio spectrum if they wanted to, right?
Absolutely. There are something like a police scanner that scans hundreds of frequencies. And you can run this apparatus, and it will start to scan. And when it hits a frequency, you may get several words. You may get a couple. I've seen this apparatus actually work. They call it different names, the ghost box or ghost antenna and things like that. And as it scans, you'll actually be able to pick up certain conversations. Other people have tried to narrow in the frequencies, but sometimes they change per entity to entity. There is something called, I forget what the name of it is some triangle out east, and if you drive through it, you'll see apparitions alongside the road. Sometimes they're Native American Indians, or they're the redcoats, from a different time. There is also the ancient story of Resurrection Mary, where she comes out of the cemetery in Chicago, and she'll be walking alongside the road, and people will pick her up, think she's absolutely real, deliver her, and she disappears.
Okay, Doctor, it's not that I want to see anything. Thank you very much. However, it was my theory that staring at that computer screen for that long period of time affected me, that the refresh rate of the computer screen affected my brain after a while. Now, that's just a wild
that's
theory.
True. It's hypnosis, a form of hypnosis. The 60 cycles or the 120 cycles form in the mind, the subconscious brain, and you start becoming hypersensitive to suggestion and autosuggestion.
That was just my theory. Okay, listen, a lot of people, I'm somebody who doesn't want to find these things because I'd rather not see them, thank you. But if somebody actually wants to find a ghost, Doctor, what is the best advice you can give those who would wish to actually see?
You would have to go to some place that's public and that advertises that they're haunted, and then you could take your equipment with you. Like I said, sometimes a still camera is better than a video camera if you don't have the right frequencies. But that's the way you kind of get started. I don't recommend going to cemeteries, but
Why?
with my equipment, at night they have certain restrictions. And I've been to several at night, and I don't get a lot of evidence. I get more evidence walking down the street. Like I got more evidence walking down the street of Tombstone, Arizona, than I did inside the birdcage.
You know, that's really, really interesting because the best EVP people I know also say they don't get their best evidence in cemeteries. They go to places like prisons.
Yes.
You know, places where...
The loop.
Yeah.
You get caught in that loop. You can't forgive yourself. You're not good enough. And you have to stay in that prison because you just can't pass that reality. So what do you hear? You hear the same things over and over. They're new conversations, but you get that EVP because they can't break out.
See, that is legitimately scary to me, to imagine being caught in a loop.
And then you're
with consciousness doing the same damn thing again and again and again.
Yeah. You can't forgive yourself. So when someone comes around, you're in my space, they become territorial or predatorial. And so normally when you're like in a prison or an asylum, they become very predatorial and territorial. So they'll almost want you off their property, and they'll do whatever they can. I mean, I think in certain cases, not to step on Barry Taft's toes, but I had a case where a lady was being sexually assaulted by an entity, and we could videotape the entity, so we knew it was there. What shocked her was she thought it was all a psychosis until we actually showed her the videotape of the entity in her bedroom.
Oh, my God.
Her when she got home. And so we had to...
You're telling me you have video of this?
Yeah, I've got it in my library. I mean, I've got years. Ever since 2000, we have, and then prior to that, we experimented on frequencies in order to see this. So we get into certain private matters, you might say, I can't reveal names or locations, but we get into certain situations that don't make any sense to us. But if you're just free-flowing energy, and you're caught in the, self-ridicule, self-hatred, you'll never break out. You'll never break that loop. And that's why when you go to these prisons, you go to these asylums, their minds can't forgive themselves.
Okay, well, apparently that is a good hunting location if you really want to find these things. JN on Skype, hello.
Hello, Art Bell. This is Jeremy in Aransas Pass. Thanks for having me on. Art Bell, I've been listening to you since 94, 95, and this is my first time to get to talk to you, so I'm really excited. Mr. Dr. Lynch, great show tonight, man. I'm really enjoying it a lot. A quick little thing, and then I'll let you get on with some other people. I'm sure there's plenty of people who like to talk to you. When I was young and we had this ranch out in Goliad. I used to wake up a lot of times with scratch marks all over my stomach. Now, when I was a kid, I never told nobody that because I was more or less scared, And I know it wasn't from playing or something like that, but I remember them being almost like, five fingers, which you would notice, and they'd be like on my stomach and on my...
Caller, let me ask you this. Did you feel it happen to you at the moment it happened, or only when you woke up did you see this stuff?
Yeah, only when I woke up. It like, I never felt it in the night, It was always like whenever I woke up the next day. And it was only when I went to the ranch. It was only when I went up there and we spent the time at the ranch with my grandparents and stuff. It never happened to me like at my house where we lived. It was always only at the ranch. And, I know it wasn't from playing because I was a pretty careful kid. I would remember these scratches. But I just remember him being, the size of a hand, and they would be on my stomach, and they would be sometimes on my chest, and even I think sometimes on my back. But I would just like to get Mr. Lynch's retrospect on that.
Okay.
And
Dr.
I
Lynch.
appreciate you having me on.
Yeah.
Right, thank you.
Yeah, that entity was trying to get your attention and not trying to lethally harm you. So that entity was in that room while you were there all the time. Now, you don't have the ability, we're not telepathic, we don't have the ability to find out what they really wanted, but they were just trying to nudge you to get your attention for some reason.
All right, well, it sure gets my attention. Some of what we talk about, you can either believe it or not believe it. But when you have these scratches, I mean, really bad scratches, as depicted on our website, the photograph you sent. My God, that just doesn't come from nothing. Or in this case, sort of in a way, I guess it does. Let's go to Silverdale, Washington. Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, Art. Hello, Dr. Lynch. I wanted to say, years ago I took a class with a lady, and during the class, psychic class, she was talking about the fact that her father, she would go to the Akashic records at night for the class, and she said she'd always see her father who had passed. He was a French soldier, and he had passed years before, and he was laying there always with looked like angels around him working on him, and she'd see him every night, and they would reassure her he'd be all right. And she told our class one time about it, and I just got kind of guided, we'll work on him tonight by my guides. And the next morning when we went to our class, she said the most wonderful thing had happened. She said he had come that night, and it's the only time he'd ever done it, and he sat on her bed and said he was fine now, and they conversed a little bit, and then he left, and she said, I know he's fine, and she said, I didn't see him laying there that night in the Akashic records on the way to the Akashic records. So I think he probably needed to forgive himself for something that happened during the war is what she felt, too. So it was probably a matter of forgiveness.
Yeah, the odd thing is that there's a lot of things that we talk about, like angels and miracles, and the Vatican has a whole room of these things. We look at them very lightly, but at the same time, the energy to do this is out there, and it's a medium, it's a matrix of energy that's fueling not only this reality, it's fueling this reality in a way that our conscious mind is looking at it. And then we can alter it if we so desire. So to have psychoanalysis on the other side with angels or superior beings or guides, I say absolutely. I say why not? And we may be totally embarrassed once we get on the other side of, our lifestyle or our lives or whatever. But at the same time, if we can forgive ourselves, accept this next life, then we are re-immersed in that energy, and we are reconnected on the same level. So my energy is absorbed back in, and all my memories come back. I can go back to all my past lives, all my future lives, if I so desire. It becomes infinite time, infinite space, because you're nothing but energy. If we look at the process, even Einstein said if you go to the speed of light, time stops. Well, if you're just pure energy, electricity, if you're just pure electricity, you have no time, zero time. It's when you drop out of that is when linear time.
Okay, that makes sense. I mean, earlier you were saying zillion, and that doesn't work, but I mean, you're talking about infinity, basically, or
yes, let's just say infinity. Yeah. So when you start looking at that and the infinite energy that's backing that up, and how that connects to the genetic code in your body, the genetic matrix, then we start to see that we're interconnected. We're in a medium of we're in subatomic energy. We're in subatomic plasmas, and this is a benevolent, gentle energy. But
you're throwing around a lot of phrases that I don't understand. Genetic matrix.
No, I hate to say that we're back in the Cold War, but there's a Russian scientist, a Russian biophysicist, who's talking about molecular biology, and he's talking about the DNA and how it resonates, and that they think in Russia now that by using certain DNA frequencies, they can cure genetic information.
Wait a minute, what's a DNA frequency?
Well, we all are resonating. Our DNA is resonating at frequencies related to our body, our genetic code, our genetic blueprint. And the Russians think that they can use other frequencies, energy plasma frequencies probably, and they can correct DNA or manipulate DNA or genes at a at the cellular level. So there's other people looking at this, and if we're all resonating, that means we're harmonic. Now, I was in Europe, and I went to this museum for harps, and I was just amazed at these harps, and these people were playing these harps in a symphony.
You're leading me all over the place here. I'm not.
Yeah, well, I'll tie it up. So these harps are resonating strings, and if each part of my gene is a resonating string, we are a symphony of vibration, a symphony of energy.
Yeah, I'm going to actually have a guest on audio energy. It's a very, very interesting subject. Somebody named Chaz on Skype very quickly. Hi.
Hey, Art. Hey, Doctor. I'm calling from Vegas. Quick question. You see all of these shows on TV where these investigators are going out and they're investigating prisons and
That's right.
Asylums and that type of thing, but none of them ever talk about the possible attachments that these ghosts or entities or whatever could attach to them and go home with them and cause havoc. I can take my answer off the air, but what are your thoughts on that?
God blesses the naive mind. I'm just going to say they are incredibly fortunate if they don't take something home with them or something doesn't follow them home. And that is something that...
Now I'm with you. I think that I've been warning a friend who's using this program, this app to find ghosts. It's like, in my mind, it's like using a Ouija board. Mm-hmm. You're going to invite something into your life, and you're not sure what you're inviting into your life, and you may not be able to uninvite it from your life. In other words, once you get something hanging around you, you've said it yourself, those orbs, those energy balls, whatever they are, those spirits may not leave. Once you invite them in, they may not leave, like a bad guest at night.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of the Ouija board, I later on this week will be going back to the Exorcist house in St. Louis.
He's pretty well convinced these orbs that people see are the real McCoy. Now, the orbs that he showed in the photographs, I think, are astounding. They're not like the orbs I've seen, just the light blobs that you see in photographs. And a lot of people believe in those. Anyway, if you want to join us, national number is area code 952-225-5278. The first-time caller line is area code 775-285-5800. 775-285-5800. And, of course, on Skype at MITD51 or MITD55. And, Doctor, you're back on the air again.
Yes.
Okay, let's explore what we've got on the phone for you. And on the first-time caller line, you are on the air.
Hello. Hello, Art.
Hi.
I am a huge fan. I just want to say I'm so happy that you're back. But I just wanted to call in and talk about attachments for a moment.
Attachments? You mean like to email?
Well, no.
No, not those, huh?
The spooky ones that I was unaware of until I had one. Your guest was mentioning, locations such as, prisons or things like that. This is our regular hospital where you're hospitalized and your stay, isn't very comfortable depending on what you're there for. But I had an emergency surgery and ended up being there for a couple days, and something came home with me, and I didn't realize it until, weeks later. I had just a lot of depression, and I didn't know why. I felt really gloomy, and anyways, it took quite the toll on me.
How do you know, excuse me, how do you know something came with you? How do you...
Well, I didn't know it at first. It took some time for me to realize, because I kept questioning myself and wondering why I would feel a certain way or these mood changes, and it really wasn't until I was actually revisiting one of your shows with Malachi Martin.
Yes.
And he was talking a lot about, your mood and people who can, feel energy or negative energy and those sorts of emotions that can take over, even just with...
So this wasn't even close to the normal you.
No, it just felt like, part of me is present, like I am right now, but some of these emotions would come over me, and I just was wondering where it was coming from, and eventually, I found out by meeting with a person who had a lot of I guess psychic ability, and asked me questions, and it took a lot of digging, but when I found that out, it was a little scary. It was like, that ride at Disneyland where a ghost follows you home.
Yeah, so how did you get away from this? Or did you?
Well, I did. It took a lot of energy just to, basically what it is, we are all lights and we are all, energy. And I think what happens possibly is when someone isn't ready to go, and they're, in the hospital, and, they have that moment of being released from their body, perhaps they're stuck there and they're trapped, or maybe, they're trying to find that light in other people and they attach to it and
Doctor, let's ask, Doctor, if you're close to somebody, for example, in the hospital, and they pass away, is it possible they attach to you?
Yes, it is. Now, sometimes that's not necessarily true. Many people who die in the hospital no one ever dies alone. There's always someone standing by, a relative, angel, whatever. But sometimes they just can't give up that mortal coil. And so they will attach to someone who is healing, because the energy from the wound somewhat bleeds out to repair the skin, repair the body, and they can survive off of that. I've got an interesting story. It is spooky.
Wow.
That a friend of mine who's also a partner in my organization, she hypnotized a gentleman who had chronic shoulder pain. She hypnotized him and pulled him kind of out of his body to look around psychically. Mm-hmm. And noticed that there was an attachment on his shoulder where he was receiving that pain.
Wow.
And then she said, okay, if there's anyone from the other side who would like to come and get this attachment and take him to the other side, please do. And then she asked the gentleman, what is happening now? And he said, well, under hypnosis, he said, God called his name, and he went into the light. The man came out of hypnosis, didn't remember anything, because she erases that memory.
Let me guess, the pain was gone.
Exactly. Now, this also happened with another patient who swore up and down she had arthritis in her ankle. And she had a brace on it, and her doctor said, you have arthritis. After hypnosis and after an entity detachment, she got up and walked out.
After an entity detachment. Okay.
Detachment.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you very much for the call.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Right. Take care.
Yeah.
Okay, so those kind of attachments are not only possible, but, I mean, what if you work in a hospital? If you're a nurse or a doctor, how do you avoid such attachments?
I don't know. But my partner in this is also a registered nurse. So she's not only a registered nurse, she's also a registered hypnotherapist. And so she works in the psychiatric ward of a major hospital here in St. Louis. And she sees all types of abnormal behavior. Now, some of it's controlled through chemicals and drugs, and others just requires a little bit of, conditioning, socialized conditioning. But she says what we're up against on the other side is uncontrollable, because we have to deal with it on its level. So whatever level it's at. So if it's cowering in fear or regret or dread, all that bleeds through. And if that attaches to someone, then they're going to suffer that.
Okay.
It's not a possession. It's not a possession, but it does play with their mind.
All right. So here's a question for you. If somebody calls you, I would imagine with the work you do, you would get calls from people distressed with an attachment or with a haunting or with, do you get these calls? And if so, how do you react to them?
I go over the trouble list, the list of things. Do they have migraine headaches? Are they suffering from any chronic pain?
No, what I mean is, do you actually go to people?
We go. Yeah, we can go and investigate and get evidence for them, either audio or video or still photography, hand it over to them, and then say, what would you like us to do? Because you're not crazy. There is something in your house. What would you like us to do? And then I hand it over to the psychic. The psychic calls in angels or whatever she needs to do and clears the house. And I have seen this on video. The entities just sweep through and they don't come back.
Okay. Going to Skype, you're on the air with Dr. Lynch. Hi.
Roswell's Art.
Hi.
And hello there, Dr. Lynch. Pleasure to have you on the program and to be listening tonight. I just wanted to call in and sort of validate a previous caller's experience tuning in through the radio and hearing what he said were sort of spirits or phenomena.
Oh, yes.
And those spirit boxes, I'm telling you, those things are 100% real. They're valid. I've heard dozens of hours and seen from dozens of different devices clear, concise communication, entire sentences long to direct questions. And this stuff is so real. But what
I sure would like to hear recordings.
An excellent person that does this almost on a daily basis. Video, audio, thousands of dollars of equipment, top quality. His name is Steve Huff. And
we'll look into
he doesn't
Steve
do
Huff.
it for money or anything, but
that's
if
fine.
you want to look
in fact,
for
it's
spirit
better
boxes,
if he doesn't do it for money. I really am a hands-on guy. I want to see. That's why I was impressed by the doctor's photographs tonight. I want to see evidence, either photographic evidence, or I want to hear it, or whatever. So if he's got actual, you said, sentences, right?
Yes, Stephen Huff has whole sentences from dozens of different boxes, communications with dozens of spirits. It's all up on YouTube, so it can all be validated. But I have one quick question for the doctor in relation to these. Sometimes these spirit boxes get used by people who are speaking in English, but they do it in countries where that's not the primary language, say in Mexico or someplace in Europe, and they're still getting responses even though they're in another language. Would the doctor perhaps have a possible explanation as to why that's the case?
I'd love to hear it, sure. Doctor?
There's a gentleman in Kansas City who does EVPs, and he gets EVPs in foreign languages. Not only in English, he gets them in Hawaiian and some other American native dialect. Not all of them are in English. I think it's just the entity's way of trying to communicate. I don't understand.
All right. So here's a question, Doctor. Do entities remain in the general physical area where they passed?
No, not necessarily, no.
In that case, we ought to be getting EVPs in Swedish, German, Japanese, Chinese.
French, yes.
All
absolutely.
of it, right?
If you go to those countries and let's just say you go to a family who's had a recent death.
No, wait a minute. You're reversing yourself. You're saying, if you want to hear it in Japanese, go to Japan.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, then wait a minute. Entities do remain in the area of their passing.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, right. But I'm sure that if you had Japanese in America, just like these Canadians were in America, and the entity followed them here, they could easily be in America and converse with them in Japanese. They could be with the family, not necessarily with the place. But the rule of thumb is a person, place, or thing can be haunted or attached.
Okay. Very quickly to the phones. Hi, you're on there with the doctor. Hello?
Hello?
Yes, hello.
Oh, hi. This question is for the doctor. So I go to a school that actually used to be an insane asylum in California. called California State
No, don't tell me.
University.
No, don't tell me.
Oh, sorry,
I don't need the name.
Don't tell you? Nope,
Yep.
no name? Okay, all right. Sorry about that.
You go to a
Well,
school.
I used to be in insane asylum, so I'm calling from the dorm right now. My father used to work at the insane asylum, and I was just wondering if there's a way to either, like on both sides of the spectrum, stay away from any kind of activity, or maybe, I guess, invite any kind of activity if I wanted, yeah.
Is that what do you want to do, sir? You want to invite it, or you want to stay away?
But both. I'm not really sure. I guess. Yeah. I want the doctor's opinion on that.
Yeah. All right, doctor. So should
he should not invite it? No, I'm of the content that no one wants another person's lifestyle imposed upon themselves. So no, I don't classify to invite it or do anything like that. I don't even recommend them having a school. These buildings like this that remain dormant clear across the country should be destroyed. They should be destroyed.
Really?
And even though the entities would probably move on, they need to be cleared through some type of, clergy or psychic to pass these people on. To pass them on so there's no residue of them, occupying this space.
Well, here's what I don't get. You say that can be cleared, that those spirits can be, I guess, sent on. Is that correct?
Sent on, right.
Sent on, okay. But on the other hand, you said so many are caught in a loop in judgment of themselves and that nothing moves.
Nothing can move them, right. This is because the structures are still there. The prisons are still standing. The old asylums are still there. They're still standing. And they have a residue of energy that,
So you remove the building, you remove the place for the spirit to continue to cycle.
Exactly. And then you send those on to the white light. You do it through I'm going to say an exorcism, but it'd be a form of exorcism to send them on, because the longer those buildings remain, the longer those entities are probably going to stay in that area, not unless they wander off. And if they wander off, they're wandering into the subdivision that is right next door, and you have no idea what's going on. You see what I'm saying? So
all right.
You don't want that to happen.
No, you don't. TMAC on Skype. Hello. Skype, going once. Gone. Are you there?
Yes, sir.
Okay, go ahead, sir.
Hi, I just wanted to ask if you're going to have a Halloween special.
Oh, you know I am. We're going to be, yes, and we're going to be on Halloween all week in a sense, talking about this sort of thing. But, oh, yes, we're going to finish it off Friday night, Saturday morning with Dead.
Cool. And I wanted to ask the doctor, what's been your worst case ever where you said, you know what, I'm just going to back out?
Okay, good question.
Yes. We were doing a television show for Scariest Places on Earth. Triage, I think Corporation was doing it. And we were at this haunted location. And somehow I got separated from the camera crew and the audio guys. And then suddenly I realized I was by myself, which is the worst possible scenario.
Yes.
And I'm standing there on the second floor, and something comes into the room. It is as cold as ice. I can see my breath. I see sheets and curtains flying around and moving around like a big wind, or someone has just opened the door. Like a big wind has blown them inside the room. The next thing I know, I have this cold wind pushing me up against the wall. And I cannot see anything. There's, my camera is on. I still can't see anything, but I am ice cold, freezing.
What is it, by the way, about ghosts that makes it cold where they are? Why?
It's something about the way thermodynamics work, and they are colder than the environment. They are always about 10 degrees colder than the air molecules around them. And when these things get big, like a cloud, they can they can force you right up against the wall, and it's freezing. It is ice cold.
That'd be enough for me. Out I'd go. All right, Doctor, I want to thank you for being on the show tonight. We're way out of time here.
It's my pleasure.
And we will do it again sometime. Thank you.
Yes.
Good night. All right, that was Dr. Michael Lynch. And indeed, we will be talking about this sort of thing all week long, one way or the other, from all kinds of different angles. And then Friday night, Saturday morning, prepare yourselves. It was promised. Dead air comes. From the high desert, I'm Art Bell. Good night.